Hello, and from the local scene studios here in America's hometown of Plymouth, Mass., welcome back to Craic on the Coast, where we explore Irish America, its people, its passions, and the heritage that connects us across generations and oceans. I'm Michael Schilling.
And I'm Shaun Morgan.
Great. So today our guest is a trailblazer, a daughter of Brockton, lifelong public servant, and someone who has proudly carried the Irish American story with her from the halls of Massachusetts State House all the way to the ambassador's residence in Dublin.
And she made history as the first woman to ever serve U.S. ambassador to, quite frankly, one of the better countries in Europe right now, better countries in the world, and we are, of course, biased. And her name is Claire Cronin, and joined us today on the road that led her there, her proudest moments, her accomplishments, and what's on the path ahead.
Right. And now Claire was also the recipient of our inaugural Irish Woman of the Year award that we gave out in May. So she received our first Pikeman statue, which comes with it all the emotion and public service and tenacity and everything that comes with it. So, Claire, I thank you for participating in that event. I thank you for receiving the award, and it's an honor to have you with us today.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be with both of you here today. Thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome.
Let's start by talking, Claire, about your early career. So before Ireland, before diplomacy, you were rising through the ranks in Massachusetts politics. What inspired you to step into public service?
Sure. Well, by way of my early career, I am a practicing attorney, and I practiced in Massachusetts for many years. In 2012, my state representative from Brockton was Jerry Creedon, decided that she was going to retire and step down. And at that time, I had always been involved in politics, maybe behind the scenes, never as a candidate. But the district seat that was opening was Brockton and Easton. I grew up in Brockton, have a very large Brockton family. My uncle at one point in time was both a state representative from Brockton and the mayor of Brockton. So I grew up in a family that believed strongly in the importance of public service. When I was growing up, that was something I would always hear from my mother, talking about the good her brother was able to do as both a legislator and as the mayor of Brockton. So it always interested me. And when the seat came open, I felt that I might be very well suited for it, knowing that I grew up in Brockton, had spent the majority of my life there, had my law practice in Brockton, but at the time we were living in Easton as well, and it's where we raised our family. So I thought that I had a very good grasp of the issues in both communities. So I made a run for it in 2012, and very fortunately, I was elected at that time.
That's great. Now, obviously, you've made history in several of your accomplishments and everything else, but also with that comes being a woman in a very male-dominated area. Not so much maybe now, but definitely back then in both law and politics. Now,
Sure.
were there challenges with that, or hurdles that you had to overcome? Things of that nature.
I never think of it in terms of hurdles. I always think of things in terms of opportunities rather than hurdles. I will say when I was elected, there had been 20,000 men who had served in the House of Representatives, and I was the 182nd woman. So if you look at those numbers, you say, wow, that's a very stark difference. Of course, when, going back in history, women weren't even allowed to vote at some point, and, the legislature was very male dominated. But that's changing slowly. I did have a few firsts. I was the first woman to ever chair the Judiciary Committee, and also the first woman to serve as House Majority Leader. So I had a lot of opportunities afforded to me while I was in the House, and definitely took advantage. I always just tried to put my nose to the ground and work very hard, and I think it paid off for me.
Oh yeah, I like that statement. The idea that there's no hurdles, just opportunities. That's. I think I'm probably going to use that line with my daughter.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said that. I don't know how it just popped out of my mouth.
Time to trademark it, Claire. See it on a t-shirt as well. So piggybacking on that, so obviously, you just said number of firsts throughout your career, majority leader, but also your appointment as the first woman to serve as U.S. ambassador to Ireland.
Actually,
So,
that is not true. I
okay,
don't want to correct you, but I was actually
no,
the
correct.
third.
Really?
Ah,
The for in But interestingly for your listeners, all three women that served as U.S. ambassador to Ireland hailed from the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So the first one was Margaret Heckler, who had served in Congress and then was a cabinet secretary, I believe, under the Reagan administration. So she was the very first woman to serve. And the second one was Jean Kennedy Smith, who is, a member of the Kennedy family and had a very significant time as ambassador. She was there during the negotiations that led up to the Good Friday Agreement and had a very great impact. And then I came along and I was number three.
Oh,
okay. So we'll have to check, give our fact checker a little slap in the back of the head, but that's okay.
yeah. That's me. Or actually, that's Wikipedia.
Oh,
So regardless of one versus three, I mean, I think you put it in context there. 20,000 men sitting in the house. You were number 182. At points, do you just sit back and just reflect on, like you said, the hurdles that you've overcome, but take it a step further, the doorways that you've helped open for other women to come behind you?
yeah. I think, and I think I tried to work really hard doing that. When I came into the house, there were fewer women at the top of the totem pole within the state house in the house. There were some, but I did find that it was many of the men that were at the state house that really mentored me in many ways. And so I thought that, I wanted to give back. And I would say I made it an important priority for myself to mentor the newer members that came in after me, both men and women. But it's, I think it's really important in the workplace to be able to share what you've learned through your own career, and if you can help bring others along, something that I always felt was pretty important.
That's great, and that mentorship is a big deal in any field, especially if you're going to want people to come up behind after you and do better than you. I mean, that's what we all hope, and
Sure.
as we're going through. So that's great. Now let's leapfrog and let's talk about Ireland.
Sure.
What was your first impression of not only when President Biden, named you as ambassador, but also just your first impression of what you thought the role would be when you got there?
Yeah, sure. Well, the role is basically defined. You're called an ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary, plenipotentiary being the important word there. And that is that you act on behalf of the President of the United States. You are the President's personal representative in the country in which you serve. So to me, it felt I was very honored to serve as President Biden's ambassador. He was very beloved in Ireland. So I likened it to say I began on third base because I got to serve as President Biden's ambassador. And many of the things that you do are not radically different than that which I did serving in the Massachusetts House, just on a global scale rather than a statewide scale. So very importantly, your first priority is to protect the safety and security of Americans who are in Ireland. That includes cybersecurity, and it also includes American companies. We work to expand the people-to-people ties, and it was very easy for me to do that. When I first arrived in Ireland, I said, I am going to make sure that I visit all 26 counties and the north as well. And I was able to visit all 26 counties in my first 6 months there. And then I just kept going back, back and back. And, I felt it was important not to be the U.S. ambassador to Dublin, but to the whole island. So then I made sure that I traveled and I visited businesses in the small towns, bigger cities, and really had an ability to learn about all parts of the country and the great business that's being done in Ireland and, the exciting changes that are there. Also work very closely with the Irish government. They embraced me very, very warmly. I think I would often hear from members of the government that, they considered me one of their own because I had come from an elected position. And as you're there, you're working on what are our shared challenges and priorities and how we can best work together. So those are pretty much the parameters of the role, but there's an awful lot that makes up those things.
Sure. And not to put you on the spot, Shaun, but obviously in your role at UMass, you must have had obvious interactions with Claire with regards to higher education and agreements and everything with regards to UMass Boston.
Yeah, we would like in at times, but there's definitely a lot more to be done, Claire. Especially
Yeah.
in your current role as well.
Yes, I am. I have just been appointed as a global scholar at UMass Amherst, and I'll be working out of the Newton Mount Ida campus, working with students, which is something that really interests me a lot. When I was in Ireland, I created a program at the embassy called the Open Doors Program. And what I wanted to do is open the doors of both the embassy and the ambassador's residence to people who normally would not have access. So I started out with schools, and I read a statistic when I was first in Ireland that said 1 out of 4 6-year-olds in Ireland have a parent from a different country. So whenever we talk about the Irish relationship, we always talk about our ancestral ties. But as Ireland becomes more diverse, the the ancestral ties become somewhat diluted. So I wanted to make sure that young people in Ireland could form their own relationship with America. So every week I would have 75 to 100 students to the residence in the morning. I would give them a tour, a historical tour of the residence, and then would sit down and have a town hall. And then I had a great opportunity to pitch the J1 visa to them because we love our Irish students coming over to spend their summers in Massachusetts and other states as well. So I enjoyed, and I found working with the students to be very, very rewarding. And so that's why I'm really, really delighted to have this opportunity with UMass Amherst to continue to work with young people.
That's great. I love the idea of having the ambassador's home as like an open door setting. I know our local consul general, Sheila Fitzgerald, who we all know, when she
fabulous.
Yeah, and when
we'll give a nice shout out to Sheila while we're on today.
That's right. But one of her
jobs.
I remember one of her first things that she kind of instituted was not so much the consul general's office, but the residence is becoming an extension of that, and how she's had an open door policy with regards to events and having people in. I've been to several of them, and it's an open door policy to the J1 students to come in and be part of those events and get to know the community and everything, and it's been a fabulous view that she's had on it, and it's exciting to hear that you had that same idea when you were ambassador.
Yeah, for sure. It was great, and Sheila is doing a fabulous job on that, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Claire, obviously, a big part, we know the job of ambassador and representing policy, like you said, shared issues that face the United States and Ireland. But there's also the deeply personal piece of the job. What's some of your fondest and most meaningful memories of your time there in Ireland?
Oh boy, there are so many. I could say, first of all, my granddad was from Donegal, and very early on, I made a trip up to Donegal. And although I had been to Ireland, I had never been to Donegal, and he was from the Inishowen Peninsula. His family was one of the original families that were evicted during the Carabina evictions. And the first time I went to go up and see my granddad's house and know that that's where he lived was like really, it's something I'll never forget. And, I did that early on in the trip. And then as a bookend, shortly before I was leaving Ireland, I came home in January, but at the end of December after Christmas, I made the same trip up with my brothers and sisters and our daughters. And, that was incredibly meaningful. Um, Certainly, when I was there, when I think of things that were really meaningful, certainly President Biden's trip was historic and just a really wonderful, wonderful trip. He was there for 4 days and, he gave this powerful, powerful speech in the west of Ireland, little town of Mayo, Ballina, which is where his ancestors came from. And it was also the home of Mary Robinson. And 30,000 people descended on this small town to hear President Biden speak. And it was really, it was quite extraordinary. The other thing that I think of was the fact that I got to know and have a lot of discussions with many of the people that were involved in the peace process and the Good Friday Agreement. George Mitchell came and stayed at my house on two different occasions. So if you're sitting around having breakfast or lunch with George Mitchell, it's the only thing I can liken it to is playing baseball with Babe Ruth.
Hmm.
He made such an impact. And while I was there, we celebrated the 100th anniversary of U.S.-Irish relations. And we did a speaker series every month. And a lot of that focused on the Good Friday Agreement, where I was able to bring Jerry Adams and Bertie Ahern and George Mitchell and Lord Reg Empey all to speak on a panel about what they went through during the negotiations of the Good Friday Agreement. I also did a panel with the women of the Good Friday Agreement, Monica McWilliams, Liz O'Donnell, Breed Rogers, she was there. Um, David Trimble's wife participated in that as well, because they all had an impact as well. And oftentimes the women don't get some of the credit, or there's not as much focus. So that was really important and meaningful.
That's great. I know Sean and I were both at an event at the Kennedy Library for the Good Friday Agreement, and George Mitchell was there and spoke. And it's fascinating to me that a topic that can still be kind of a hot topic with discussion and all the different political parties involved, how they really all do have an immense respect for George Mitchell and how he carried himself and what he was able to achieve and the role he played. And that's I feel like in this climate of politics, for someone to have that stature is not an easy feat at all.
Yeah. And he did it at great personal sacrifice. He had a new baby at home. He spent all the time there. There were threats against his life as well. But he just handled it. And, I would have to say that is one of the great models of conflict resolution in the world. And it always gives me hope, because if that could be figured out, hopefully we can figure out some of the other problems and disagreements that exist throughout the world.
We could only hope. Now, obviously, we've talked about, the fondest memories that you've had and everything else. Obviously, the job must come with some hardships or some difficult situations that you had to manage. I know we had an initial conversation about what you had to deal with when you first walked in the door. Maybe you can share that.
Yeah, well, I arrived in Ireland in February of 2022. I was sworn into office in January, and it was only 2 weeks from my arrival time that Putin invaded Ukraine. And certainly when you're in Ireland, that feels a lot closer to home than when you're in the United States. You know, there were many Ukrainian citizens that already lived in Ireland, but then during that time, there were probably Ireland took in probably 100,000 Ukrainians into their country of only 5 million people. So when you think how significant that was and how warmly the Irish people embraced the Ukrainians coming in, but it's very difficult. If you watch news from here and it seems very far away, but I was meeting people, Ukrainian citizens. I remember I just met these two young women. They were twins. They were just around my daughter's age, and they had come without their parents, and their mother was a nurse, and she was staying back to tend uh, to the medical needs of the soldiers, and their dad was a soldier. And I just remember feeling such deep empathy for them and sadness that they were going through that. So it was very, very difficult time, but I saw a lot of really good in the Irish people and how they embraced the Ukrainians and supported them. And, throughout my time there, I became, very good friends with Larisa Harasko, who was the Ukrainian ambassador to Ireland. And we worked very closely together, on all the, U.S. policy around supporting Ukraine at that time. But it was baptism by fire because, 2 weeks in, we were into real diplomacy, certainly, but something I will never forget.
Now, in a situation like that, obviously in the moment it would be difficult, but as you were removed from it and you could reflect a little bit, would that be a situation that you could tell yourself that this is really why I'm here?
Yeah, yeah. The work was very meaningful. It really was, and to advance the United States policy on Ukraine while I was there, felt was really important, and very proud of the work we did supporting the Ukrainian people.
That's fabulous.
Excellent. So just a little bit of a light question for you, Claire, and it's something I have to ask because I know my son will want to know.
Oh yeah.
When you went to the residence and met with President Higgins, how much time did you ignore him and spend with the dogs?
I did spend a little time with the dogs. I actually have a great picture with the dogs, and of course, President Higgins is just delightful, and his wife as well. But yes, I did. I did get a photo opportunity with the dogs. Although since then, one of them has passed away.
Yeah. That residence it's a beautiful, beautiful home and a beautiful property. I was very lucky to be able to go there this past May after we made the famine walk, and he was very gracious to host us and talk about it, and we were able to present him with a couple of gifts of appreciation. But the history behind that residence, it's enormous. And
Yeah, it really is, and it's we were neighbors. There's a circle in front of the Iris where President Higgins lives, and I was in Deerfield residence right across the street. So Michael D. and I were neighbors there,
there you
and
go.
both residences have a significant historical background for sure.
Yeah, and you're adjacent to Phoenix Park. That is one of my most favorite places in Dublin to just walk through there. It's so peaceful to think that you're so close to Dublin and you could feel so removed.
It's absolutely beautiful. Is it? It's the screensaver on my phone. A picture of the park.
So the next question I would have is obviously we're emphasizing the strength of the Irish-American relationship, not just in politics, but we all agree in culture, history, shared values. And from a vantage point such as yours, where do you see the relationship heading in the years to come? Because obviously it's a very important relationship on both sides of the Atlantic.
Sure. It's a very strong relationship. And, oftentimes when I speak, I would say how our ancestral relations are the foundation of our ancestry is the foundation of the U.S.-Irish relations, but our trade and investment is the glue. And this is something, if you are in Ireland and not just Dublin, in other areas of the country, there is there are close to 1,000 U.S. companies that make Ireland their EU base. As a result of Brexit, there was actually a benefit, I believe, to Ireland because right now Ireland is the only English-speaking language, the only English-speaking country in the EU. Ireland has a very strong workforce, highly educated workforce, great proximity to the US and beyond. And the same token, Dublin is the first stop coming over from the US if you're looking to engage in business within the EU and beyond. So Ireland is positioned quite well to capitalize on this relationship. So when I arrived in Ireland in February 2022, Ireland was the ninth largest foreign direct investor in the United States. Now, think of that figure. It's crazy. A country of 5 million people, the ninth largest foreign direct investor. It's a remarkable thing. But the story gets better because when I arrived, they were ninth. And when I left 3 years later, Ireland was the sixth and just tipping over to become the fifth largest foreign direct investor in the US. Really quite remarkable.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
It's fabulous. When you think about it, a country with fewer people than in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, being such a large supporter in creating jobs, across the whole of the United States. Every state in the United States has an Irish company doing business there.
And I would agree definitely with the educated worker. I don't know how many young individuals that I've met at Sheila's residence for events that it seems like biomedical is a lot of their big study that they undertake over there and then come this way, but none of them.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of, startups in the biomedical field, pharma. There's a wonderful company in Cambridge, Shola Oncology, founded by two Irish women, and they're creating pediatric oncology drugs and doing very well. And we see this across the whole United States. There's just a lot of opportunities for growth, for sure.
And it highlights how important the J1 program is because a lot of them come over within that program and they make the ties and the relationships while they're here on the J1 so that they can, finish their degree and then come back. And that J1 program is amazing.
Yeah. And, whenever I would speak to someone, they would always say, oh, I had the greatest summer experience on Cape Cod or, Saratoga, or, they go all over, but there always seemed to be a very strong amount of Irish people that wanted to come over and spend some time in Massachusetts. So still exists.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's that aspect. Massachusetts feels like Ireland at times,
Yeah.
So it's an easy, natural flip over.
I always felt when people would ask me how I like Dublin, I'd always say it feels very much like Boston to me. You always meet someone, it's like the old story from the Cheers song where everybody knows your name. You find the connections and they're just wonderful.
So we talked a little bit earlier. Obviously you held incredible positions, influential. You gave us a little run through about what's next, your relationship with UMass Amherst. What do you see, beyond that, Claire? Like, what's down the line 5 years from now? Is it embedded within education, or do you have other things in the pipeline?
Well, I'm really enjoying focusing on the UMass role. Um, it just is, I mean, UMass is our flagship university. The educational ties, I mean, Sean, you could even speak to some of the stuff you're doing at UMass Boston as well, with some of the schools. We had a recent meeting over at UMass Boston, which you might want to talk about that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the educational exchanges are really important and significant, and the educational programs that cater to the necessary workforce that is needed. And we have fine institutions. I mean, in Ireland, you have UCD, DCU, University in Cork, UCC, Trinity College, and they are turning out some really talented students that, it's really nice that our American students have an opportunity to study there, and the same holds true that Irish students can come here. But whenever I talk about Ireland as having a highly educated workforce, there are other statistics. Last year, and I found this really extraordinary, last year, 15-year-olds in Ireland had the highest reading scores in the world. Not in Europe, in the world. So when you talk about a highly educated workforce, I always say it goes back to reading. I encourage my children just read, 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 and that gives me great, hope for the future.
So, with regard, we're talking about UMass and everything, but beyond that, Claire, I mean, I could see your experience as ambassador being very influential in regards to just the Irish American dialogue. A lot of the nonprofit organizations that have missions that are transatlantic. Like Sean and I have said on several of our shows. You find out that the community is not as it's large, but it's also small. Everybody finds out that they know someone in a different organization. You thought you were going to show up and meet new people, and you just end up seeing familiar faces, and that's great. It makes sure that the mission is on path and on point. But I definitely could see someone with your experience being an asset for a place like that. Do you see that in your future being part of a larger call?
Oh, I don't know. I would all like to have a crystal ball for sure. I do know that I want to continue my relationship with Ireland. We made very wonderful friends during our time there. And, I expect to continue to go over and, visit and maintain those connections. And I hope that so many of our Irish friends have a chance to come over here as well.
Yep. I mean, it's that aspect, back to the J1, you can't pass up soft diplomacy that comes with connections from people to people. And, the relationship art in the United States is just the perfect example of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously that relationship has had to evolve and grow. I mean, like you said, Claire, we're getting to a point where Ireland is much diverse. A good amount of people here, maybe we would say outside of New England, their ties go back several generations at this point. But it is amazing that even though that's the case, the relationship is still there. It's still evolving. It's still growing.
Sure.
And just the investment you're talking about. I mean, those numbers, that really blows my mind. You're talking about, like you said, a country with the population less than the Commonwealth being the number 6 investor in the U.S. I mean, those are amazing numbers for a country as small as it is. So it all really comes
the
together.
culture is great. It's a very interesting thing for me too. I grew up, I am a very proud daughter of the city of Brockton. And when I first went to Ireland, I had the opportunity very early on to meet Katie Taylor, who, as you know, many of your listeners will know, Katie Taylor is, the world champion in women's boxing, and she and I became quite friendly. I got to see her box, but when you talk about all things being local, so the first day I met Katie, I said, Katie, I'm from Brockton, which is the city of champions, because, we were the home of Rocky Marciano and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. And she told me, which I loved this story, um, she told me that her two dogs when she was growing up were Marvin and Hagler.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
this is great, And I was very delighted to see her just win her most recent fight. That was wonderful. And I actually had a chance. She came to one of my student groups where we had an open doors program, and we surprised the students with Katie coming in the room, and it was just fabulous. I mean, she's like Tom Brady in Ireland. So the kids were just delighted. And, so there's a little boxing diplomacy as well.
Hey, diplomacy through sport. That is
Yeah.
the test of time,
Yeah. Yeah. There's actually there's a really significant, there's a leader, program leader for kicking. And right now we have an Irish student that is going to be the kicker at Boston College on the football team this year. So that's really exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Well,
that
our last episode, we talked
GAA
about
talent translates into NFL
There you go.
or college football.
Ugh. Well, I mean, I would say, Claire, I mean, it has been great to have you on today.
Yeah, fun for me as well.
Yeah, it's something that I was hoping that we would get you on it. I thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Like I said, I mean, we were honored to be able to award you the inaugural Irish Woman of the Year award for Plymouth County. It was the first time we had done anything like that, and to see the community kind of come out and celebrate you along, as well as John Creedon and just the community that's there, and to see the other Irish community groups show up as well. It was a great night. And
I'm so appreciative. I really that meant a lot to me, and I really, really thoroughly enjoyed the night and the honor, and it was tremendous. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And it was great. We had the Donegal delegation there that evening. It was great to share that with them. So it's amazing everything that's happening in the Commonwealth right now with regards to American-Irish relations. I feel like it's firing off on all cylinders right now. So it's great stuff.
For sure. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your having me on, and looking forward to seeing you sometime soon, both of you.
Oh, we would love that.
Yeah, perfect. And like I said, yep, just thank you to everything you've done and the doors you've opened, and good luck with your new role at UMass Amherst in helping shape the next generations of future leaders and ambassadors.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, before we end the show, there's two other items that I wanted to just bring up to people's attention with regards to the Father John Murphy division. That would be one, this August, on Sunday, August 24th. We're running our annual Cape Cod Canal Sunset Harbor Cruise. Those tickets are $35. We go out for 2 hours of splendid good weather. I've been guaranteed it by the Lord himself, and some good Irish music. We've been doing this going on over 10 years now, and it's always a good time. We always fill the boat, but if anyone's interested in tickets for that, they're more than welcome to email us at aohplymouth@gmail.com. We have some great raffle items. I don't know if you want to come aboard, Claire, but we're raffling off a weekend at the Winnetou on Martha's Vineyard. And
Ooh.
yeah, they've been very generous with us, and they've sent us a weekend that includes breakfast and a dinner. So that should fly off real well. And we have some good sponsors, Tiny and Sons, here in Plymouth County. They're helping sponsor the event, and all what we're raising goes towards the final fabrication numbers for our Dublin Memorial Sign project that we have, that we think will be unveiling sometime in November based on the time frame that they have right now. So we're really excited about that. And then our other item is one kind of thing that I have been trying to get done for a while now, is to get a LAOH division. The AOH is a men's organization, but it has a sister organization, the LAOH. We've been trying to get a division up in Plymouth County for a while now. I think we can finally get it over the hump. And on Saturday, September 6th at 1 o'clock, we're going to be running an informational event at our hall in Cordage Park in Plymouth. We're going to have the state president of the LAOH there, taking questions and taking names and trying to get that division up and running, so that we think it'll be a good complement to our own division and just be able to increase the amount that we're doing for the local community and the local Irish American community as well. Other than that, stay tuned for what other events we'll have coming this fall. And then we'll have some more announcements on where the show will be. We're actually going to be going on the road, but I'm not going to give that out yet until I have final details. But to end, I would say if you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, share it with a friend. And if you have a story to tell or a topic you'd love to hear about, reach out to us by emailing us at craiconthecoast@gmail.com. CRAIC on the coast@gmail.com. And after that, we'll see you next time, folks. And until then, Slán go fóill. Goodbye for now.